Welcome to Ladies Talk Show. This is your host, Leah Richheimer. We are starting chapter 9. Yay! Deep connections. This is where the rubber meets the road. And I'm going to actually start with a story, the true story that happened, that's how this chapter starts. And we're going to talk about how to connect deeply. Okay. So I'm going to read this and then I'm going to read another paragraph. So it's a little longer than usual, but it's a story. So hopefully it'll be good. Okay. Ready? Deep connections. This is Marriage Secrets, chapter 9, page 205. Okay, and I'm going to read just the first story in a little bit, and then we are going to take questions. So get your questions ready and send them in. Okay, deep connections. I could just make out the back of my daughter's tilted head as she listened to the policewoman, red lights flashing from various emergency vehicles. The long line of cars in front of me was at a complete standstill, and I parked precariously, chirped my car locked, and ran like lightning. Broken glass crunched under my feet as I pulled my daughter close into my arms. The cop debriefed me. Nobody hurt, head-on collision with a white pickup truck. He gunned the yellow light as my daughter was turning left, the single most common accident in America. Double airbag explosion, our old Jeep, a shadow of its former self. She's lucky to be alive, ma'am. Her best friend showed up, and I sent my daughter off to her counselor job at camp because I knew she processes things better when she's occupied. But that's what mothers do. Make life normal when it's really coming apart at the seams. After I had the car towed away, I headed back to the recovery room where I had left my teenage son, whose 4 wisdom teeth had been pulled while his sister had been otherwise occupied. We piled into the car, my son in a groggy, nauseated state, and I continued my speakerphone mission of trying to find a pharmacy that would deliver a bottle of medicine to my 99-year-old aunt who had fallen the day before. I conferred with her doctor again and also sent over a new heating pad that she refused to open because it was covered in fur. Far too luxurious. She wanted me to have it returned for a cheaper one, which necessitated a lengthy, fruitless discussion. It was annoying in the midst of everything else, but I guess after your child's life is spared, petty nuisances don't seem quite as earth-shattering. It's hard to take your frustrations out on others when your heart is bursting with gratitude to Hashem. I gingerly walked my son into the house, his face beginning to swell into an oversized chipmunk pout. I had prepared vanilla custard, chocolate pudding, ice cream, and applesauce for his homecoming. His lips full of numbing medicine and his post-operative lack of coordination left me spoon-feeding my teenage son, evoking a bygone era that put a nostalgic lump in my throat. As I settled him into bed, the car insurance companies started to call, and then the car shop and my aunt's pharmacy, and meanwhile, a little neighbor came over having a tantrum about his lost ball. The peak of his frantic hollering occurred during my call with the watch commander at the police station, who I'm sure appreciated the sweet, homey touch to our conversation. And Hashem had yet more challenges in store for me on this true but unreal day. A short while later, as I waited on hold, I sauteed onions. Did I mention this was Erev Shabbos? And suddenly, a batch of cookies on the bottom oven rack burned to a crisp. Billowing smoke filled the kitchen. It was so thick you could barely see 10 feet in front of you. I ran out back and threw the whole cookie sheet onto the lawn, hoping to kill some dandelions. At least the smoke alarm didn't sound. We opened the door and window, and with burning eyes, I tried to finish the preparations. My daughter arrived home from camp, shaken but oddly gleeful. I guess if your worst nightmare happens and it turns out okay, your view of your ability to survive things expands, and you feel bigger somehow. I got a very special hug, and then the toilet overflowed. Plunging away, I couldn't help but smile. What kind of day was this? It seemed carefully crafted by the Rabbanu Shalom to test me in every conceivable way. My glorious triumph? I didn't yell at anyone about anything. Not even once. When I was much younger, I prided myself on how effective at yelling I truly was, both in content and masterful delivery. As an adult, I changed my tune and worked quite diligently to manage any outbursts. But the minute too many stresses piled up on top of me, controlling my interactions became excruciatingly difficult. So why do I tell you this whole story? Because by understanding what helped me to succeed on this one wacky day, we can hopefully use the same tools in the future when life throws us more than we can think we can handle. The most important take-home message for me is one of perspective. When I was filled with so much gratitude to God, it was hard to be angry at anyone. And secondly, realizing it's all a test from Hashem, I had more strength to overcome each obstacle. There's one fact that I must admit to. The minute things don't go the way I want them to, my first impulse is to push everyone in my life away. I don't even feel the need to justify my disconnecting. I just do it. The lesson that I learned on that day was that when I'm feeling gratitude, I really am capable of keeping people close to me, even through nonstop challenges. That evening, as I stepped forward to light my Shabbos candles, I heard a dish drop onto the kitchen counter and shatter. Teenage girls gathered for a slumber party shouted, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." I took a deep breath, trying to ignore the lingering smell of burnt cookies. What a crazy day it had been. I carefully lit my candles. In the warmth of their glow, I was filled with intense appreciation that my daughter's life was spared that day, and that I was gifted the opportunity to gather my family in rather than pushing them away. Okay, that's the end of the story. Okay, what is it about our harried lives that makes it so challenging to connect with people we love the most? We often race through the life so fast that we barely have time to stop and enjoy those most precious to us. These days, we have so many more ways to reach out to each other, and yet an intimate dinner for two at a fancy restaurant can become a test of nerves as we wait for the other person to finish checking their phone. What has caused this widespread detachment in our society? What is at the very root of it, and how can we eradicate it, or at the very least, lessen its poisonous effects? There are many culprits, among them lack of clear priorities, deficient attention spans, not recognizing the cost to our relationships, compulsion to being perennially entertained, lack of deep communication and connecting skills, and many others. Alongside the compulsion to control that we already discussed, there is another malicious motivation that keeps us from connecting. If we gain clarity about that, we can gain the power to engage with our husbands and family as never before. And I'm going to give you a little taste of it right now. We're going to start this section that explains and also how to solve this. Like, I'm not just telling you the problem. There's lots of fixes in here, but let's just go. I'm just going to read three paragraphs about the drive to accomplish. Okay, you ready? Yeah, good. Okay. The drive to accomplish. Somewhere along the line, our purpose in life was hijacked. Suddenly, our lives have become a mammoth race to see how much we can accomplish in how little time. Our very identity and self-worth has come to be measured by how many items we tick off on our task list. The more we get done, the more stature we hold in society and in our own minds. And anyone who gets in our way is dealt with swiftly and decisively. The car in front of us is exactly 1.5 seconds has exactly 1.5 seconds to get going, or else. The cashier at the grocery store has better not waste our time by chatting with the person in front of us. And we have zero patience for the service department lady who asks us how our day is going. Just get to the matter at hand already. The world has shifted from people as partners through life to people as impediments. Our stress level and satisfaction in life have become predicated on how smoothly our daily goals are achieved. And every person in our way is seen as an obstacle to getting things done effectively. At what point did we decide in favor of accomplishing over connecting with people? I don't recall ever voting for this particular shift in our worldview. What a tragedy that we go through life viewing one of our greatest gifts as one of our greatest stumbling blocks. And we wonder why there is so much loneliness and isolation in the world. We can't even stop to chat with a friend without her electronic device clarifying for us that we are not quite as important as whoever else is interrupting our conversation. Our new cell phone master is relentless in dictating our priorities. We have become a society answerable to what is urgent, not what is important. Okay, ladies, give me your questions. Very intense.
Okay, great story. Okay, so here are some questions coming in. Sippy asks, you're right. Life is always so hectic. I'm so exhausted all the time, and making time to be with my husband feels too hard. He's exhausted too and just wants to vegetate without talking.
So her question is, how do we solve that? What's her question?
The question is, her husband's exhausted. She's exhausted. What should they do about it?
Got it. Okay. So clearly, see, the point that we're trying to bring out here is that if you don't make a vast adjustment to your schedule, what's really most important to you, like if I took her husband and I got them in and I sat them down, here's her husband, here's her wife, I'd say, what's most important to you in your life? They're like, oh, they're not going to say like my shoes, my phone, my whatever. They may say their kids, they may say their family, but most likely if they dig down, it's each other. Right? It's my wife is the most important thing to me. My husband's the most important thing to me. And if it isn't, they have work to do or whatever. Go back and read from chapter 1 and let's get back on track. But they're going to say what's their priorities in life is each other. And that's just so subterfuged by the chaos that our daily life is, running here, going there, doing that. Oh, I got to go to, we're always running, because again, accomplishment is like seen as that's where our stature is. That's where our self-esteem comes from. That's where our pride is, where it comes from, not where it should come from. Self-esteem should be how much you give to others. There's lots of, never mind. That's all separate topic. But the point for this woman is that if the two of you were to put your screens away and sit in a forest or, sit somewhere and think, what is most important to me in my life? Or get a journal out or, think about it, talk to a friend, what's most important. You will see that much of our daily life isn't spent focused on what's most important to us. It's focused on everything else. Okay, we're making dinner, we're doing diapers, we're working so we have money, we're doing all these things. But in terms of the connection that we have with our spouse, that's put way down in the lower priority. So the first thing that this woman needs to do is to sit with her husband and say, I just realized, again, remember ladies, how we do this? Like if you are, if you are blaming him and pointing and saying you this, it's not going. The conversation is not going to work. But if you take responsibility for even if you're 1% and he's 99%, take responsibility for that 1%, and you will see miracles in your life. So if you, by taking responsibility and saying, I realize that I am always on the phone. I'm always, doing other things besides giving you the attention that I would wish to give you and the connection that I'd wish to give you. And I want to improve on this because you're the most important thing to me and I love you dearly. And I want us to have an awesome life together. So if it's possible, could we, and then, actually we're going to get to probably next week, we'll get to a whole bunch of things you can do to connect, we'll get to that how to, and then nitty gritty. But the first thing, none of those actions can take place if underneath it all, deep within your own neshama, you are making a shift for yourself that you're going to make this a priority and you're going to do whatever it takes to connect more deeply with your husband. And until you do that, I can give you 1,000 tips. Nothing's going to work until you make that decision. I'm going to make my deepest desires. I'm going to act on them. So you find out what those deepest desires are, probably closeness to your husband, closeness to your kids, not snapping all the time, not, whatever it is, whatever your growth curve you're on and whatever issues you're working on, having a depth of understanding of that and committing to growing that and putting everything else on hold until you figure out what your priority is. And again, I'm going to give you lots of actions to take, but you have to make that decision within yourself. It's a fantastic question. I'm sure it's like what everybody is thinking and everybody's dealing with the same thing. It's a global issue. And the only way we can make a shift is by taking a stand and saying, I'm going to make a difference here. I'm going to connect with my husband. I don't care what the rest of the plan is doing, whether it means that instead of being on my phone 10 hours a day, I'm on 9. That's a start, but I'm growing in that direction. Okay, that was good. Long-winded answer for a really, really good question. Okay, what else you got?
Beautiful. Okay, Esty asks, I feel so detached from my husband. It's been over a decade of us just living parallel lives. It's just easier that way. I don't even know where to start. Do you have any advice for me?
I'm not sure what. So if you're still on, it was Esty?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're still on SD, can you, or if this is an email question, I don't know, but if you're still on, say, what do you mean parallel lives? Like if you're just roommates and, you're not connected, that's a bigger problem than I can solve standing on one foot. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, then there are issues and you need to go into couples therapy with a qualified from therapist who's going to really walk you through and bring that communication back and bring the connection back. So that's a bigger problem than, if you're just saying that, there's no deep connection there, that, okay, yeah, the kids did this and, oh yeah, I ran over here and whatever, and there's, you didn't say anything about whether there's a lot of tension in the house, but I would imagine if there's not deep connection, it's very frustrating for the husband, very frustrating for the wife, to not have that connection. So then I think that would just automatically cause a lot of tension and aggravation. So my advice on that, if it's very far removed, then you definitely need a third party. If it just means you're not connecting as much as you'd like to, stay tuned. I got lots of tips and techniques. The next many classes are going to be how to connect deeply. You can go, you can get Marriage Secrets yourself and just read chapter 9. That will help you a great deal. But we're going to be walking you through it step by step. Great question. Okay, good. What else you got for me, Gila?
Okay. Ayala asks, is it too much to realistically expect my husband and I to connect every single day? As you say, every day is so hectic that my husband and I only connect deeply once a week on a date or on Shabbos.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Gedolim say you need at least 10 minutes a day, private, personal minutes a day of real connecting. Not like, hi, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? Oh, we have to, but really like what's doing? How are you? It can be at dinner. It can be on his way home from work, on the phone, and it can include logistics as well. But they say 10 minutes a day. You could ask your a Rav if they disagree with that because, everybody holds it differently or whatever. But from my experience, if I have a student who is just doing sort of, popping in, hello, popping, like that, it's not like that you lose that feeling. You ever have that experience? You're sitting in the room and, you've got your husband there or whatever, and you're doing your thing and he's doing his thing. Maybe you're at the dining room table, paying bills. No, you're reading a book and he's it's, let's say, Shabbos afternoon. If you could sit there for an hour, let's say the kids are off playing somewhere else or you're empty nester or whatever, and you could sit there for an hour and feel like you're by yourself. Whereas if you laugh a little at the book and say, oh, you know what they said, it's a little out of context, but they said this, and he laughs, or he said, he stops what he's doing and saying, would you like something to drink? Something. If there's some kind of conversation going on, one conversation, 2 conversations in the course of that hour, you feel like you're together, even if you're doing separate activities. And there's an amazing study, I read it many years ago, so I might be misquoting it, but at least you'll get the point, which is they went to, and they asked people who were coming to their 25th high school reunion, and they said, are you close with Malka? And they will say, yes or no. So they did this thing. And then they asked the second question, which is, first was, are you close? The second question was, how much have you, communicated? It turns out The result was that people who once a year sent a Rosh Hashanah card, right, did nothing else. Like literally, here's a card. They had 50 cards or whatever, and they one of them they said, "Hi," and they maybe wrote a handwritten note, or even didn't write a handwritten note, and that each of them sent each other a Rosh Hashanah card every year for 20 years. Maybe it was a 10-year. I think it was 10 years. Anyways, whatever. Those people said, "Yes, we're close," and the people who didn't do that, who didn't spend, and that was a total over the course of 10 years, 2 minutes one year, 3 minutes another, whatever. It was 11 minutes or something crazy like that. The people who didn't have that 11 minutes didn't feel close to each other. So why am I telling you this? Because it's the little daily blips that gives a feeling of closeness in the home. And so that would definitely be my strong recommendation, is to, as much as you can, even if your husband's busy with something, walk in, put a cup of water by him and walk out. You know what I'm saying? Something to build that closeness and that connection. And I'm telling you from Chazal, that those types of actions, those types of giving, that type of chesed with our loved one makes them feel, it endears them to us. So start putting it into your daily life. Put on your phone a timer. Say, my husband gets home at 5:30 or 7:30 or 9, or whatever he gets home. So then have a ding at 10 o'clock. Go connect. Do something to connect. Like that. Okay, excellent. Okay, what else you got?
Okay, great. Bela asks, I know that a cornerstone of communication with our husband is putting the problem in his lap. Whenever I try to do this, my husband gets very upset and says, "Why are you making this my problem and putting it all on me? What am I doing wrong?"
Oh, that's very interesting. So that's good. That's an excellent question. For that, I think you actually need to do a sales job on your husband. I think you need to go to him and say, you could say something like, for the last couple of decades, I've been, or however long you're married, whatever, for 5 years, over the last few years, you don't have to make yourself look so bad, whatever. I found that I was very controlling of you and, trying to make every decision and tell you should do this and you should do that. And, like that. And I realized that I want to sort of turn that around. So I might be clumsy in how I do it, and I might not do it properly, and I might, make you feel like I'm not taking responsibility for my life. That's not what I'm attempting to do at all. I'm attempting to let go of control more, to give you control. You're the king of the house, and I want you to participate in things that before I was like, no, we're doing it my way, my way, like that. And so I'm trying to just give you some power that you deserve, and some respect that you deserve, and some control that you deserve. He will eat it up. He'll be like, woohoo! I don't think he'll have a problem after that. You might have to repeat it a couple of times just to let him know. But if he knows that's where you're coming from, he's going to be like in heaven. So give it a try and let me know. If you get write me an email and say, "Oh, Leah, I tried it. Oh my goodness. Wow." Okay, good. All right, Gila, what else you got for me?
Yeah, okay. Do we have time for one more question?
Okay, I think so. I don't know. I know. I didn't.
Okay, yes. We do have time for one more question.
I did. One more question.
This will be the last one.
Go for it.
Okay. Yehudis asks, when my husband and I try to connect in the evenings, we often end up arguing because we're both so tired and burnt out from our busy days that bickering is easier to do than connecting. Should we avoid trying to connect until we're better rested?
1,000%. 1,000%. So yeah, that is also that makes the home an unsafe place. And, especially for a husband, it's like, well, what you going to bark at me about now? What you going to yell? What I'm saying? That's a very unsafe environment. So for you, what I would do is, figure out a time, and it might take a bit of trial and error. We did this and that, the other thing. I know one couple that they actually worked different times. So she was going to bed at 9:30 at night because she had to wake up super early, and he was going to bed at 11:30. So they never could connect. So it turns out that they did a morning. They ding their buzzer. Yes, I know the snooze button is there. You're exhausted. Like, are you joking? But both of them were coffee addicts, so it happened to work out in that family. But, another family that she really, really, I had given a class and whatever, and I talked about how important it is family dinner time. And she just couldn't make it work. Like her husband, it was so variable that the kids were all ready and they're all climbing off the walls before he couldn't commit to a regular time because he worked for somebody else and it was just beyond his control. So you know what they did? They all woke up like an hour early, the entire family, and they had breakfast together every morning. Like a good half an hour every morning. Now, obviously some mornings there's PTA, then somebody has a play at school. They have, so it didn't always work, but it just, same as like a dinner where sometimes it just doesn't work. But, every morning of the weekday, and I'm not positive what they did on Shabbos, whatever, they had this time together as a family, and because they couldn't do dinner. So people can try that on. It seems a little crazy, but once you get into the habit of that, I recommend that very strongly, because breakfast also, people tend to be in a little bit of a better mood. At night, everybody's bouncing off the wall. They've got a sugar rush. They're stressed about whatever, the homework, whatever. In the morning, you're just like cereal, milk, juice, or whatever you're serving for breakfast. Whereas at dinner, it's like, I don't want mashed potatoes, whatever. You have a lot more fights. Cereal, everybody's good with, So that's one thing to try out. But in any case, that might be a very, very good way for you to connect with your husband, is shifting the time. But definitely, if every time it's ending up bickering, bad. Okay, very good. Okay, Gila, that's it. That's all we have. Wow. Okay, so here's the homework for this week. One time this week, when you see that you are trying to accomplish something versus connecting, connect instead. Like, just first of all, you're recognizing it. You're like, oh, you're doing it on the phone and this and that, and a kid comes up to you, mommy, whatever, and you're like, you're just totally ignoring them. Or it's your husband, did you get the thing from the thing? Wait a minute, I'm in the middle of whatever. One time when you're in the middle of that, you're in the middle of something like, you guys aren't sitting around playing mahjong. Okay, I mean, maybe some of you are, but most people are not sitting around. So you, whatever you're doing, like, I can't believe they're interrupting me now. Are you crazy? There's never a time when they are not interrupting you. I mean, even you're relaxing, they're interrupting. You always have an agenda. You're an accomplished woman. We make stuff happen. We're great. We're active. We're doers, right? So there's never a time. And it always, like, they're interrupting and you're mad at them for interrupting without realizing what is more important to you. This email to the principal, right? Or your husband saying, did you, do you want to go out to dinner? No. Asking you some annoying thing. Well, did you pay the gas bill? Whatever, whatever he's asking.
You know where my keys are.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Thank you. Do you know where I bought you a hook. I put a beeper on it. One of those things. I did everything. What do you mean? Where are your keys? Right. So, okay, fine. So he's interrupting you. Okay. It always feels like an interruption. So once you realize that, you're like, okay, so this week when something interrupts, you realize, oh, that's more important than what I'm doing. Okay. This is Leah Richheimer with the Ladies Talk Show. Can't wait to see you next week. If you want more, we have so much more. If you want to learn our Masorah and have an awesome marriage, the first thing we have is a coaching program. If you are awesome with people and you want to know the Masorah better than 99% of the people on the planet Earth, like for reals, okay? It's a 4-month program. It's very intense. We have major scholarships and we have somebody who's granted in a lot to pay for a big bulk of it. It's still a little expensive, but for what you get, and then you can start charging money to know it. That's the coaching program. Don't miss it. Go to www.ladiestalkshow.com. We do retreats. We do all kinds of stuff. You'll find it there. www.ladiestalkshow.com. Thanks for being with us. Leah Richheimer for the Ladies Talk Show.